Thank you for joining us today. Now we're going to look at the Saffire LX-M MKO mechanical key override. Right now we have the M002-KLCB-NLTCB-12R. This is an LX-M that has key override on it, long lever which returns pretty close to the door, very much needed in places like California. It is satin chrome with the black fascia. There's no privacy thumb turn on it because I would use this one on a common area door. It is toggle capable, that's controlled in the software. It is a 1 1/4 inch standard mortise faceplate. There is no deadbolt on it because again, this is one I might use in a common area. Maybe I don't want the deadbolt there, but I've still got that heavy duty mortise latch, and it is a right-handed lock. So let's look and see what's in the box here. We have our right-handed strike plate. This is a handed item here. I'm not going to need that today because I'm just putting this on a demo mount, so I'm going to set it to the side. It also comes with a little gasket here. If I'm putting this on an exterior door, I would need this gasket. I'm just putting it on demo mount, so I'm not going to use it today. We have our right-handed mortise here. You see there's no deadbolt option on it. So just like the normal ones you'd use on a unit, but just no deadbolt. So I will be using that today. We've got our inside housing. No privacy thumb turn because this is going on a common area and we don't want that feature. We have our reader housing. Now this is a little bigger than the regular LX-M because the key override option actually sits in the bottom of the lock here. You see the hole here where the keyway will be. So a little bit taller, but still the same functions. We have our screw packs, got a couple extra pieces in it this time because of that mechanical key override. We have our mortise screws, wood and metal screws. We have our levers. As I said before, these levers are a long lever. Sometimes we call them Troy, but it's a long return that comes back within, I believe it's 1/4 inch of the door to meet the requirements of some municipalities. And that's everything that's in our box. So I'm gonna set things over to the side just so I have room to work. First thing I'm gonna do is take the faceplate off of here so that I can mount this on the door. I'm just gonna run these short Phillips head screws out. Pull that faceplate off. This is a right-handed faceplate. I've got my right-handed mount here. So I'm just gonna slide that into the mount. And I'm gonna lay this down just because I can. You can't really lay a door down out there at the site, but for me it's a little easier right here. I'm gonna pull my wood screws out of the package. I'm gonna take those and just run them in. And then I'm gonna take and put my faceplate back on the door. And I'm gonna take a screwdriver and put these Phillips head screws back in. And it's a good idea to just make these things look nice. Make sure they're pointed the same way. Makes your job look a little bit nicer. All right. So I'm gonna set this to the side for just a moment. We're gonna look at that key override on here. We've got to put the keyway in here. Now the keyways will be shipped separately from the lock for your site, and they may all be keyed alike. They may be master keyed. It depends on how you ordered them. I've got a demo keyway here. I'm gonna take the key out of it, and this is going to, it's got a little bump on it that's gonna slide into a slot here in the lock. So I'm just gonna slide that into that slot and let it all sit in there. Kind of pushes down, sets in place. In my screw pack, there were a few different screws. Kind of move things around here. We've got this screw here that we're gonna run in, and it kind of locks this keyway in place. Keeps it from flipping around inside the lock. So once I put that in, that keyway's locked in place. Before I mount it all up, I'm gonna put my key in, just test that it does turn properly, and it does. Pull that key back out. There's a little cover plate that goes over this now, and a couple little screws that we put in. They are a tapered screw just so they sit nice and flush when this is put on the door. So that's the big difference between this and the regular LX-M lock. All right, I've got my screws in there. I've got to set my handing on here. I'm going to turn this to point towards the R because this is a right-handed door. I'm going to take my my little shaft here and put in, and I'm going to put it as a diamond. Do not put this spindle here as a square. That will be wrong and it won't go through the door anyway. It's got to be set as a diamond. This lock doesn't have privacy, so I'm not going to put anything in here. I'm going to take this and I'm going to mount it on the door here and slide it through. Let my wire go through to the other side. So I've got the outside on, and it's a little bit taller than our regular LX-M, but that's okay. That's because it's got that keyway in the bottom. Now for my inside housing. Take the cover off, and I've got my inside housing here. Again, we don't have privacy on here, so this doesn't matter at all. We do have set our handing on the bottom. So I'm gonna make sure this little notch is pulled down. I'm gonna turn this over, and we've got a little notch here that's pointed down right now. We need to point it towards either the L for left hand or the R for right hand. Easiest way to do this is take a pair of needle nose pliers, stick in here, and turn it till that notch points towards the R, since this is a right-handed door. Turn this back over and put my little spacer plate in. And then I'm gonna take my inside lever. The inside one has this little notch here in it. I'm gonna put it in, and I'm gonna turn it till it latches there. That's my right hand. Then this little piece will slide up in place and hold that from being able to turn back. And I've got a little, I believe it's nylon piece here that I'm gonna put in to lock all this in place. It's also part of the fire rating of the door. So I'm gonna put that on there. Now I can actually take this and mount it on the door. Slide my wires through. Oops. Don't forget your little spring here that you've got to put in. That goes into the handle. So I'm gonna put all that on, and I'm gonna do what you can't do in the field. I'm gonna lay my door down. I'm gonna put screws in the top, these top two holes, and one in that bottom hole down there. And I'm gonna run these in, and I'm not gonna run them down very tight. Now, if you're doing a lot of doors, you may want to make a little template that you put against the edge of the door that meets the lock, just to make sure these are true. They're the same spacing from the top to the bottom. You want to be true to the edge of the door. You don't really care about being level. You want to be true to this edge, the same distance at the top as you are the bottom. Once you get that set, then you're going to tighten those screws down the rest of the way. You don't want to over tighten them. You just want to hand tighten them. So that's all in there. I'm gonna go ahead and plug my cables in. There's two different cables. You can't plug them in the wrong way really, because one of them's wide, one of them's skinny. They're keyed where they go. So I'll plug those in. I hear my little motor whir that tells me that it is working. Turn my handle, I see it's retracting the latch like it's supposed to. So I know that's good. Now I'm gonna put my exterior handle on. Got a little spacer piece that I'm putting in here. I've got my handle with the set screw that I'm putting in. That set screw does have a little bit of Loctite on it. I'm going to use a 3mm wrench to put this in. Now, word of caution, when you're using this lever, you may want to actually have a standard Allen wrench that I don't have here, just because I can only turn so far before I hit the lever. I'm gonna stick this on the door, and I'm gonna take and tighten down that screw all the way. And again, this is where with this lever, having an actual L-shaped Allen wrench is probably a benefit. I'm gonna tighten that down. And now I've got my handles on there. I'm gonna test this with the key, or with the card first. It's unlocking. I can see it's retracting the latch. I can unlock it from inside. Now let's test that keyway, because this handle does turn but it's not retracting the latch. If I take that key, put it in the bottom, and turn it, now when I turn the handle, it is retracting the latch, so we know our key override is working. Last thing that we want to do on this door is to put the back cover on. Now, when you're using this lever, it returns pretty close to the door. I've got a benefit here, my demo mount doesn't stick out as far, but when you're putting these on, you may want to actually slide this on as you're mounting the lock on, just because there's not a lot of space between the handle and the door with this lever. So I'm just going to slide this on. I'm going to use my T10 Torx screwdriver, and I'm going to put these screws in. I'm not going to tighten them down just yet. I'm just going to put them into the housing. There's one on each side and one at the bottom. Once I get those in, I'm going to push that housing back to the door so it's nice and snug against the door and I don't have gaps all around it. So that's all on. We know that our credential works and unlocks the door. We can get out from inside, and we already tested our keyway. We know everything works and we're good to go. So that is our LX-M with mechanical key override. Thank you for joining us.